Joining me is Leith Van Onselen, co-founder of Macro Business and a former Federal Treasury official. Leith Van Onselen, thank you so much for your time. The Albanese government last year said immigration would halve, was on top of this problem. But the January figures are a record, more than 55,000 new immigrants, a record for any January. That's net in 1 month. Now, why is that?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely crazy numbers there, Andrew. So if you multiply that by 12 to give you an annual figure, that's about 660,000 in a year. It's also the highest January on record. It smashed last year's January, which I think was about 21,000, and that was in a record immigration year, obviously. So basically all indicators now are pointing to the fact that, immigration is going to run well past the Albanese government's projection of 375,000 this financial year. It's not only last week's numbers, but also the national accounts for the December quarter that were released showed that Australia's population grew by 680,000 people last calendar year. And that's up from the 624,000 in the latest official data we had for last financial year. So if anything, mate, immigration is rising, still rising, even now.
That is insane. That is just unbelievable. I think for legal immigration, this is probably setting a world record for a Western democracy in terms of percentage of population. Now, is there a clear link between the housing shortage we now have and this incredibly high rate of immigration?
Oh, absolutely there is. And anyone who denies it is basically a knucklehead or a liar. So rents fell at the start of the pandemic when immigration turned negative. And obviously we've had rents absolutely explode, up by about 38% since the start of the pandemic after immigration was obviously rebooted to record levels. So, I mentioned before that the population grew by 680,000 last calendar year, according to the ABS. At the same time, ABS data released last week showed that we only added 166,000 net homes to our housing stock. So that means we only added one home per 4.5 new residents last year. And that is why I've got a rental crisis. And projections released today by the Urban Development Institute of Australia suggest that it's going to get even worse. And they projected only 79,000 homes will be built across the combined capital cities in 2026, which is about 26% below what we built last year. So housing supply is going the wrong way at the same time as population growth is still running, at these extreme levels. And all it means is the rental prices are going to keep getting worse. We're going to have rents rising, we're going to have people being forced to live in group housing and more homelessness unless they get these immigration numbers under control. It's as simple as that.
But Leith, let's pretend for a second that the immigration minister really is, swear to God, really is trying to cut our immigration intake. It's not working. What should the government be doing?
Oh, look, anyone with a shred of common sense would know that the government should be reducing immigration to a level that is below the nation's ability to build homes and infrastructure. Unfortunately, they're doing the opposite. And I suggest that net overseas migration needs to come down to, at a minimum, below 150,000 a year. I'd prefer more like 120,000 a year. And that would give us ability to actually catch up on the housing shortage and actually ensure that Australians are housed properly and also that we can keep up with this infrastructure. Because the way it's going at the moment, we are a dog chasing its tail economy at the moment. We can't keep up and the situation's just getting worse. Housing, infrastructure, everything, living standards. Yeah,
well, what you're suggesting as an ideal rate is still half of what the government claims it wants to cut it to. It wants to halve it to about 250 odd. I mean,
way too high.
Incredible numbers. Why do you think it isn't doing something effective already to cut immigration?
Look, the federal government loves immigration for two reasons. So first of all, it gives it the illusion of growth and that the illusion that the economy has avoided recession. Even though we're all going backwards individually and in per capita terms. The Federal Treasury also loves immigration because it boosts the tax receipts. So the federal government collects about 80% of taxes. It collects all the personal income taxes and company taxes. Those all get juiced by immigration because you've got more people spending and obviously paying taxes. The problem with it is all the costs are then shunted onto the state governments and onto you and I. And so basically, immigration's an easy way to grow the economy and federal budget revenues while the costs are deferred onto everyone else. And that's why the federal government keeps running this mad policy.